Today, we're talking about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention, but affects buyers, sellers, renters, and even investors right here in South Florida. And that's real estate scams. These scams are happening every day. My goal today is simple. I want to help you to recognize the red flags, understand how these scams actually work, and most importantly, know how to protect yourself and your money. Whether you're thinking about buying, selling, renting, or investing, this information could save you thousands of dollars and a lot of stress. So let's get into it. So, why does this matter? Real estate scams are on the rise in South Florida, and they're getting more sophisticated every year. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting, you're a potential target. Now, one of the things to keep in mind with these real estate scams is that there's always a sense of urgency. Urgency is the weapon. It has to get done now. It has to be done today. It has to be completed right this minute, or there are going to be some dire consequences. And anytime you find yourself in that situation, that should be something that would be considered a red flag. Let's take a minute and dive into 5 of the most popular real estate scams that we're seeing in today's market. Scam number 1 is wire fraud, and this can have devastating consequences. What typically happens in this situation is that an email is hacked, either coming to you or leaving the title company, and they make a small change to the wiring instructions. So in the past, we used to be able to identify situations like this because the grammar would be off. There would be some flaws in the actual email providing the instructions. With the arrival of AI, that is no longer a way to tell. Typically, the grammar and the English is flawless, so that's no longer a tip-off. What we're seeing is that the actual wire instructions are slightly modified. So the branding and everything else remains the same, but the routing number and the account number are altered on the new document. One of the ways that you can protect yourself is if there has been any change in wiring instructions, you should call the number that you have, the official number, an independently verified number, to confirm that the instructions are actually correct. In fact, I would go a step further. Even when the initial instructions have been provided, make sure that you call the title company to confirm verbally with someone on the phone that these are actually accurate instructions so that the funds will get sent to the right place. This is particularly important for buyers who are going to be sending in funds, but it's also important for sellers because sometimes we've seen where the seller's email is hacked and the scammers are having funds directed to someone other than the seller. And the challenge with wires is that once they're sent, it's incredibly difficult to recapture that money. So you want to make sure that you're being very cautious in terms of making sure that the funds, that the instructions that you're giving are going to the right place. One of the best practices that I have come across for sellers receiving funds is you provide your wire instructions at closing. So you're in person at the facility where the closing is taking place, and you can at that point provide your wiring instructions face to face. That has been very successful in reducing the incidence of sellers' emails getting intercepted and their proceeds getting routed to the wrong party. So that's number 1. Wire fraud, it's prevalent. Be very careful. Confirm once, twice, 3 times that you are using the correct instructions before you send any funds to anyone. Scam number 2 is rental listing scams, and these were very popular a while ago. Seem to be slowing down a little bit as tenants get more cautious and become more aware. But the format that this takes is that a bad actor will find information on a legitimate listing and post it on another site, be that Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Zillow. They post it at a different site, and then the price that they're offering the property at is typically way below market value. So it gets a lot of traction, it gets a lot of hits, and renters are asked to provide a deposit. And when that deposit is made, they ultimately find out that they were dealing with the wrong party and that deposit is lost. I've seen situations where the scam has been carried so far that not only has the paperwork been prepared, but the scammer has moved the tenant into the property, taking first, last, and security from them as deposits and as move-in funds. And then ultimately, the true owner of the property shows up and the person finds out that they've been the victim of a scam. Tenants out there, make sure that if you are looking at properties that are not coming from the multiple listing system, which is the official realtor system, that you exercise caution and that you are very careful to make sure that the person that you're dealing with is not a scammer. One good way to know that the property is maybe you may be at risk is by looking at the price. If everything in the neighborhood for that size property is going for $2,500 and they're offering this one for $15,000, then you may want to take a second look. If you feel that it's too good to be true, it probably is. So exercise caution. We don't want you to be a victim. Scam number 3 is deed fraud, also known as title theft. And how that works is a scammer will typically create a quick claim deed. That's the way that I typically see it being done. They create a quick claim deed, deeding the property over from the owner to some other party without the owner's permission or consent. They go to the county clerk's office and register the new quitclaim deed. And just like that, title is transferred from the legitimate owner to this new party, this scammer party. A good way to protect yourself from this type of scam, because this is silent. A lot of times if you have property that you don't have a mortgage on, this is something that can easily happen. Typically when there's a mortgage, if there's a change in ownership, it triggers some alert with the lender and you get contacted as it relates to the property. That's not always the case, but the exposure is typically greatest if you have a property that does not have a mortgage on it. The best way to protect yourself is to go to the property appraiser's office. Most of them have a free service that will alert you if there's any change being made to the title of your property. You want to use the free resource that is available through your local property appraiser's office and make sure that you get alerted in the event that the property is, if that there's a change, someone's trying to make a change on your deed. So do keep that in mind. Scam number 4 is foreclosure rescue. For property owners who may be experiencing some difficulty, they're behind on their payments, there are bad actors who will offer to work with you to get you out of foreclosure or to rescue you from foreclosure. Typically, they will require some type of upfront payment. That should be a red flag for you, and they will guarantee the outcome. There is no guarantee. Foreclosure mitigation process is available through a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, and typically there is no charge or a nominal charge for those services. So make sure that if you find yourself behind on your mortgage and you get correspondence or you're contacted about someone who can fix the problem for you and they'll guarantee the results, recognize that may be a scam, especially if they're asking for payment up front, and go to the HUD.gov website, look for housing counseling agencies, and find a legitimate counseling agency in your area to discuss your particular situation. There are results, positive results that can be obtained from that process. However, you don't want to be in a bad situation and find that someone took advantage of you and now you've made payments that have gone nowhere and ultimately end up still losing your property. So just make sure that you are aware, and big red flag, upfront payment or any type of guarantee. The service provider has to negotiate with the bank. There's no guarantee that the lender is going to accept the terms that are being requested or offered. So a guarantee is definitely a huge red flag because there are no guarantees in this type of service. So just keep that in mind so that you can protect yourself. You don't want to throw good money after bad by having someone take advantage of you while you're in a tough situation. And scam number 5 is contractor or repair scams. In South Florida, we are in a hurricane impact area. And so typically what we see as the summer rolls around and the hurricane season starts, usually runs from June 1st to December 1st. Once we get into that mode, if a storm goes through and there's any damage, we'll have a ton of unlicensed contractors who make their rounds. They knock on doors, they claim that they've seen serious damage, and they pressure you to sign contracts and to pay large deposits immediately. A lot of times they disappear, they do substandard work, if they do any work at all, and it becomes a problem for you. These situations happen a lot more frequently during the storm season, the hurricane season, but they also can happen throughout the rest of the year. So be very leery if someone comes to your door knocking, offering to provide services. Make sure that you confirm who they are, verify that they have a license if the work that needs to be done is licensed work, and ask for references so that you could talk to folks who they have worked for. It's always a good idea, if any work needs to be done, to make sure that you are working with a vetted contractor so that you don't have to pay to correct the same problem twice. Across many of these scams, there are some common warning signs, so just be aware of it. Number 1 is always the artificial urgency. We have to do it today. We're in the area and we can repair your roof for less money than if we have to come out on another day. We're in the area. We can fix it today for a greatly reduced amount of money. You just have to give us a deposit up front. The foreclosure is imminent. You need to pay for it. You need to send us funds today so we can start working on it. I need the wire instructions right this minute. All of those things have one thing in common. There's a sense of urgency. You have to act immediately. That for me is a huge red flag. I always tell people in almost every situation that I'm in, I need 24 hours to think it over, and then I can get back to you. That gives me time to go back and vet and make sure that everything is above board and that I don't find myself in a tough situation. Another big red flag is there's an unusual payment method or an immediate payment. A lot of times now, with the presence of Zelle, we have people who will have you Zelle them funds. An important thing to know about Zelle, once your Zelle funds over, it is extremely difficult to get that money back. Okay? It's almost impossible to get funds back unless the party to whom you sent it will return it to you. And if this is a scam, that is unlikely to happen. Typically, we also see that in many of these scams, there's a lack of documentation. They don't have the appropriate paperwork. And of course, there's no verification. They want you to act quickly. They're not giving you time to verify the information and make sure that everything is legitimate and above board. So these are the 4 warning signs. If you find yourself being concerned with one or more of these factors, stop, take a minute, do some additional research before you make any type of commitment. Again, just to reiterate, because at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that you are protected. Slow everything down. That's one of the best ways to protect yourself, and then verify everything. It's really important to try to work with licensed professionals only and ask questions. If this is a legitimate person providing a legitimate service, they should be able to provide answers to your questions. So don't feel bad about asking questions or be reluctant. Ask questions. Make sure that you have clarity and that you feel comfortable. And if you're not able to get there, pause and let's wait it out. In my experience, there have been very few offers that have not been available another day if I don't take advantage of the offer that's available today. So best to be safe, not sorry. Let's pause if there's any doubt until you get to a place where you feel comfortable enough that this is a good plan and this is not an attempt from some bad actor to take advantage of you and separate you from your money. Always remember that knowledge is your best protection. An informed consumer is much harder to scam or take advantage of. Real estate involves big numbers typically, so these are large financial decisions, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable and you take the time to make the right decision for you before you move forward on any transaction of any kind. Make sure that you stay alert. If something seems like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Trust but verify. If you don't know who the person is, if you don't know someone who's used the resources before, make sure that you go online to verify licenses, verify through additional sources to make sure that you're not being conned, and then work with trusted professionals to make sure that if something doesn't feel right, you have someone that you trust who you can say, hey, this is a concern of mine. What are your thoughts? And they can help to guide you. If you suspect that you're being a victim of fraud, please remember to contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement or the Attorney General's office to make sure that you report it. Not only will you help to protect yourself, but you'll make sure that others don't fall victim to the same con or the same issue. I hope you found this information helpful. If you would like to talk with me about your specific situation, please visit my website at simplyaskSharon.com, where you can schedule a complimentary phone call with me to discuss the specifics of your situation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please remember to like it, and also remember to subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when new videos are released. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.